Okay, let's make a little doll shirt. Or at least attempt to make it, because I'm going to be basing this on the Blythe shirt that I created years ago, but I want to make it like Western style with yokes and not with the gather back and yeah, I think I know how to do that. This is not an exact pattern I have shared. I have shared a Barbie size version of a basic shirt that doesn't have the back weirdness that I'm going to be ignoring here, so we'll link that below and you can improvise a way to make your own if you so desire. Alright. This might not be the best thought out cloth either for this, but it's what I thought would be cool when I got the idea weeks ago. That's what I'm going with. Pieces keep coming out. Alright, another thing I'm going to do, I don't know if you can see in my sketch, this has cuffs. I'm going to ignore the cuffs because the body this goes on has removable hands. So I can just make straight sleeves. Alright. I'm not going to try to maximize most efficient fabric use because I have plenty. So, do I want to make the corner curve like that, or just want to make it straight? I might be tucking this in, so I'm going to make this straight. I've said, I don't know if in previous videos or elsewhere, but part of the reason I've decided to share videos of me making stuff, sewing, is because I still feel like people think that it's a very exacting art. And I'm hoping showing the way I do, I mean it can be, there are people who make things that are far more beautiful and refined than I make. And I'll admit, I will see the things they make with all the details and the trim and the fine fabrics. And I'll think, oh, I would like to make that. I just never think about doing it. And then I forget it and I go back to my normal right stuff made from printed cotton. What was my point? Oh yeah, it's everyone does the same thing in different ways. So it's fine if you don't want to make doll stuff the way I make it, but I am showing you that you don't have to put super detail thought into it. Just make what seems like it would be a good idea, and you'll be fine. Now yes, I do have a lot of years of experience doing this stuff, but I guarantee I did not spend most of those years doing it in a kind, nice, and refined manner to get to the point where I can be so slapdash and feel confident in what I'm doing. I've extended this bit past the fold because, again, I don't want the back to be as full as it is in this pattern as given. do want to make this long sleeve. And I guess I might put a little detail at the bottom. I'm just not going to make the full-blown cuff like I often do in these kind of button-up style shirts. I don't do it as a flex, I do it because sometimes hands can be really hard to get over. So, it doesn't have to worry about that if the cuff is actually open. I don't know if this is the actual length I need for this doll sleeve, for the arm, for the body. This is going on. The Creatable World body. I have not done the face reveal yet because I still haven't made the face, but it is on a Creatable World body. Alright, I'm going to narrow this sleeve too a little bit after I get it cut out. Maybe. I do have a notch here to show this is the front of the sleeve because they are not exactly symmetrical front to back. Again, I know a doll, you can make it symmetrical and ignore ways that patterns are made for human bodies and human comfort, and a doll wouldn't care, but I like to keep it consistent. I am folding these separately because if you fold one around the other, then the thickness of the fabric is going to make a slight difference in the width of one versus the other. I don't know if it's enough to matter. It's just something I think about. Alright. So, front back sleeves. That's everything I need from this fabric. And the collar. Let's see, the collar goes down the green. And again, it doesn't really matter on a doll. But I'm still wanting to do the color down the green. Like, here we go. Human size color. And as usual, I'm not looking at the camera, so apologies. I think I have things lined up so they're actually in the frame. So collar. Now I need to do all the yolks. The back is easy because I can just use the actual back yoke pattern piece. Don't think that's gonna work. And again, like I said, it doesn't matter if things are following the grain or not, but I want to anyway. See, there's that stretch, so that's the grain. Also, this fabric got ripped on the grain, so I know what's what. And I'm going to move it up because I'm going to make the bottom pointy. And I have to remember to exaggerate this point. To exaggerate it because there's going to be seam allowance pressed under, which means I don't actually have to come to a point in the center because it will be folded. Alright, so there's the back yoke. Now the front parts. Actually, so I guess in theory I'll make it the same starting point, which is on that line. So right now the plan, I've actually never made a doll shirt like this before. The plan is to press under all the edges. Probably finger press. I probably won't bother to get the iron out to do that. And then basically applique these yokes to the front and back of the shirt, which is how it's done with actual Western shirts. But to reduce the bulk, since this is doll size, I'm going to then trim the lower layer of fabric away before sewing the front to the back at the shoulders. I feel like that should work. I don't know if it'll work. Alright, so I'm going to be coming down from here. Also, I need to mark. Alright, that's going to be way too sharp. Alright, hopefully that will work. See, on the inside I can just make this straight. And then a little bit bottom of the sleeve. And I'm using this instead of the sleeve pattern because if you remember, I've already deviated from the actual sleeve pattern to cut this sleeve out. So instead of trying to recreate what I did with these sleeve pattern pieces, I will just use what I cut as the pattern. Alright, so alright. I think that's everything I need. Sleeve, back, front, collar, yoke, decorative cuff. Alright, so it's time to clean this stuff up and move to the sewing machine. Okay, so what I've done is fold under the edges of these just a little bit. And actually the fact that I made them slightly curved is helping them because biases are just weird. So fold it under and then finger pressing and fold the other side under, roughly the same amount. And of course not measuring anything. pressing. Just clipping off some loose threads that might be visible. And I'll line this back. I guess I should technically figure out where the center of the back is just to make sure. My yoke comes to a point in the center also. Yeah, it's close enough. Alright, so I'm going to pin that. Now I'm going to stitch around those edges, doing my favorite thing, which is to align the edge of what I'm stitching with the inside of the narrow prong on the straight stitch presser foot. As I mention often, I love my straight stitch presser foot. And the process of folding these and edge stitching these is very much like the process of making the back pockets on the jeans. Alright, so there's that. Because I'm going to chain, I'm going to go ahead and, so the next ones, which I've already obviously folded and pinned. It's more for proof of concept because, like I mentioned, I've never actually done this before. So I'm going to keep sewing this stuff together, chaining like that, and then going back through, and like I said, just to keep the fabric from getting too bulky, I'm going to trim away the inner layer using the folded up edge as a guide. So that should give a nice, fairly light, yeah, they will be a little thick where we have all these layers come together, but I think that will help keep the shirt from being too ridiculously bulky, and I didn't do a very good job sewing that edge. I think I'm going to be picky and sew that again off camera. So I will come back once I've gotten all these things stitched down. Okay, so this is the collar, which I have folded right sides together. Now I'm going to stitch the edges. And since this is my pattern, it's used my seam allowances, so I can align things with the edge of the narrow presser foot prong, which just takes so much less thought for me to do. Okay, and because I'm going to chain, that means I'm going to go from here to sewing on the shoulders, front to back. And the other side of the collar. And then I'm going to sew top stitch the shoulder seams just because I like top stitching. side out, pick off all the thread. And I'm going to edge stitch this for consistency. Let's see which side will do this top. And get my trick of putting a straight pin into the corner so the whole thing doesn't get jammed down into the bobbin area. Okay, now I'm at the point where I can't chain, so pull that out. Okay, now to attach the collar. Find the centers of the back. Under the collar. This is the fiddliest part of this shirt. Alright, so those are pinned at the center. Pin at the shoulder. And then pin at the farthest edge. Other direction, shoulder. Now, farthest edge, although this might change because the next thing we do is check folding of the center back to see if everything lines up. That the amount of distance along this curve to the collar edge is the same. And it is. Alright, so then you take the extension and fold it back so that the edge aligns with the edge of the seam allowance, and then fold that forward by a seam allowance amount so you won't have any raw edges showing up once it's done. And this extends past the edge of the collar intentionally. Alright, align that with the edge, fold it forward. See if they extend the same amount past the edge of the collar. Alright, and now I'm going to sew through everything from one end to the other. And I honestly don't expect the bottom edge to be, or the underside to be sewn flat, because you're sewing a curve to a straight edge, and things tend to buckle and fold. So check that. And Actually, it looks pretty good. Okay. Turn it right side out just to check that everything does seem to be the same amount in the same places. Alright, so first check if the collar is sticking out of the fold the same amount. It is, and then from the collar to the edge is the same, and it is. Alright, and then temporarily fold it back how it was, and do a few clips in the seam allowance just so it lays a little flatter. Okay. Now for the sleeves, I need to get this extension lined up. Edge fold over. Get this lined up with the arm side. So notch the front. And I'm going to live dangerously and not pin anything. And trust that I knew what I was doing when I made this pattern. It's been a while though. Close enough. Alright, so the other sleeve, same way. Align the extension with the arm's eye. Top edge folded in under. Again, usually when I do this stuff, I'm not putting words to it. I just go. Alright, so considering the other side, this stuck out just a tiny bit. I'm going to start it just a tiny bit over. And yes, there are probably people who are screaming at me for sewing with the pins in place. But I go slow enough that when I do happen to hit a pin, which happens very rarely, it's not too traumatic. Alright, so there's that sleeve. Now I need to sew the sleeve hems. Yeah, technically, maybe I'll be good and fold this up twice. Another thing I do is once I get things started, I will hold on to the thread tails to give it just a little more sturdiness, and again, less likely to get shoved down into the bobbin area. Do that on the side. Finger pressing is very handy when sewing small cotton things. Okay. Now I can sew the sleeve seams and side seams. And for modern kinds of shirts, you should sew the sleeves so the seam allowance is pointing toward the sleeve. Vintage, older stuff you can get away with, well, vintage, antique, centuries older sewing. The shoulders might be doing different things, but with this, it's going toward the sleeve. And I seem to have made some little misjudgment at some point, and one side of the sleeve is longer than the other, but I'll make it work. And as always, I cut the seam allowance at an angle away from the edge to keep it from peeking out there. I clip into the seam allowance under the sleeve because it's going to flip into weird things, and then I clip at an angle down here because I will need that to have a little less bulk when I do the hem later. Alright, to the other side. Pin into the arm. I think I've explained this before. I pin so it goes through this stitching on both seams on both sides, and that just makes them lined up when they're sewn. Okay, now, not just jumping straight into the bottom hem. Okay, first I poke this up to make absolutely sure it is as sharp, as pointy as possible. Then put a pin in it, and then extend that fold down to the bottom. Make a little clip corner fold is, then turn that to the inside, lay it over itself, and sew that on the bottom. And when you turn that right side out, it's going to naturally force the bottom to fold up the correct amount. And I do that on the other side. And I guess I can make sure, check to see it's the same width as the other side, but it doesn't really super matter if they're exactly the same, in my experience. Alright. I'm going to fold that to the inside. It helps a little reduce bulk if you open the side seams up. Give them a quick finger press. In theory, I could fold this twice here too, like I did with the cuffs, but I don't want to. Okay, now is where the hook and loop tape comes in. Of course, if you would rather use snaps, you're welcome to them. I am just, as I've mentioned many times before, lazy. Alright, so just going to do a little length. Alright. Like I did with the jeans, I'm going to catch this in top stitching. So pin that really close to the edge, very firmly so it doesn't get a chance to wander. And then on the other side, that's where the hook tape, that was the loop tape on top, because I like to put the soft ones on the top. This is not quite as important to pin as thoroughly because I will be looking at it when I sew it. Alright, now I'm going to transfer these pins to the top from the bottom hem. Okay. I say that a lot and then spend several moments fiddling with things, don't I? Alright, and start from the center back on the neckline. Sewing very close to the edge. computer's being strangely noisy, as usual. Yeah, I didn't pin that and it slipped. Let's see, how bad is it? That's pretty bad. Sewed off the very edge. And it's going to be folded over so that side will be visible. It's okay though, because the next step involves sewing a parallel line. So just back tacked. Alright, so since this is going to be the visible top, trim close to that, and pull it to the other side. And then I sew another parallel line over here. This is both to catch the other edge of the hook and loop tape and to simulate a front band. Okay. Now the question is, do I want to put little studs along the front to make it look like the fancy snap closings that Western shirts have, or do I want to call it done? I think I'm going to call it done. Alright, so it's time to see if it fits the intended body. Okay, again, I'm going to try to conceal the doll's head because it has sculpted hair on it, so I don't feel like I can take it off easily, but I do plan to finish it soon now that I have the clothes done. So here is the shirt. I don't think I'm blocking too much of it. He's a doll, I can do that. So, the back. You know my overlying philosophy of if you sew it together, it goes together when it comes to mixing prints. And with this one, I think it's pretty funny how it's almost kind of hard to tell there's even two different prints, even though one is a black and white floral and one is a black and white and gray and white, blue, and teal splatter. But I guess since the white base they have in common is enough to make them blend fairly well. So I got this idea out of my head at least. I'm not sure it was such a good idea. And it's, the shoulder width is correct, but the rest of it was just so big. It's very wide and very long. I had to use that screwdriver that I used to turn the corners. I used that to actually tuck everything in to the pants, which I still haven't decided if I want to put a snap on or not. I probably should. But yeah, it surprised me how big this Blythe shirt is for this Creatable World body. But, I mean, it's dressed. I just need to paint the face and the hair now, right? So I will do that soon, maybe even today, but it will be another video because why not? Okay, I am rambling. I have a shirt. I will link my Barbie-sized pattern, kind of like this, so if you want to try something like this yourself, you can use that as a base. The construction is exactly the same. So I mean, the whole point of me making these videos is because I want to help people do stuff. I'm not trying to show off what I can do. I'm trying to show that what I do might not be as refined and polished as you think, and I'm hoping that will make you more likely to try it yourself. I mean, it would be disingenuous to ignore the fact I've been sewing for 30 years, but I've been sewing doll clothes for 20 years, and more like 25. Anyway, it didn't take me 20 years to get good at it, or what I thought was good. I am rambling again. I'm trying to be encouraging. I don't know if I am actually being encouraging, but I'm trying. Okay, next video. See you then.